Today's video, I'm gonna let you in on the secret of what tropical plants that yield fruit or vegetable or root, I guess you could say, that I grow in Canada, whether it's in the summer or indoors here in the winter. Because some of these tropical fruits are more perennial, if you will, meaning I have to transition them outdoors, I have to transition them indoors, and I need to care for them 365 days a year for as many years as they want to be in my life. So let's get into it. Many of these are from grocery stores, by the way, grocery store produce that I just turned into my own. Kind of cool. Okay, number one is the pineapple. If you've been on this channel, and I mean OG on this channel, back when I started it when I was super young, you know I had a pineapple plant. And my pineapple plant, this is not the same one, this is 2.0 version. They can all yield pineapples. Obviously they need the lighting and the proper temperature, but they're just kind of a cool plant in general. So one thing you may want to consider is just a pineapple plant for its beauty. I like to grow mine in a terracotta pot, regular old potting soil. I don't go for a coarse mix or anything special. I use Sunshine Mix number 5. I say that all the time. That's what I use. Ultimately speaking, this can yield a pineapple. Mine wasn't very tasty. I may have not done it right, is part of the issue. But the way you get this is just by pulling off the top, removing some of those base leaves. I like to start mine in a container of water till I get some true roots. And in many cases, when you remove those bottom leaves, you will right away see roots in place and you'll think, oh, those are roots, and they are. From there, I typically water from the top. I let the water sit in the leaf crevices because that's where the roots are. I don't worry too much about the soil. Actually, I kind of leave the soil pretty much dry at all times. And ultimately it makes a very pretty plant. This gets large. This one's about a year old now, but they get big. They get very big before they're ready to turn into fruit. But kind of a cool tropical plant you can grow in Canada. Number 2 is actually the dragon fruit. So we see these a lot of the time with California gardeners, and they have these really extravagant pot style things. I started mine here just this spring. I have not yet gotten a fruit off of it. However, achieving the fruit, I don't think is going to be the problem, considering how rapidly they grow. Now, I gave some to Jessica, bestie Jessica, over at Arcopia. Dean, not my bestie, Jessica, my bestie. I'm just joking. I love Dean. He's awesome. But I gave them a couple plants. I don't know how quickly theirs is growing in their greenhouse. I expect them to have a harvest all year because of the conditions that they're in. But for me personally, I expect to get a harvest in the summertime months, and I am expecting expedited growth over the winter months because of how I'm going to treat them. So I am going to use the Earth One plant sensor in this case, and I'm going to utilize that to make sure I'm getting the correct number of hours as well as soil moisture. And I want to try to keep that soil as moist as possible, given the type of plant it is, to ultimately achieve really rapid growth so that when the summertime comes, I have a very large plant, or plants, because I have quite a few dragon fruit seeds. So the way that I did this is I bought a dragon fruit. I hollowed the dragon fruit out. I just cleaned off the seeds a little bit in some water. I didn't do too much manual labor there. Put them on some moistened paper towel, put them in a to-go container, waited for them to germinate. They turned into little baby succulents. They're super cute baby plants. And then I actually put them on a capillary mat under lighting, and I treated them the same as any produce. I did not treat them like a succulent or a cactus. Or cacti. I treated them like a vegetable. So lots of water, regular fertilizer, Sunshine Mix number 5, and now they are in terracotta pots. And the reason for the terracotta pots is because one thing I do find where I am is when my humidity goes up and the temperature goes down and my lighting can waver depending on whether it has grow lights or not, my water usage tends to deplete. And saving grace is always terracotta pots with these tropical plants. So give it a shot. Dragon fruit, totally possible in Canada. Okay, next up is kind of my fave. I think it's really cool, and that is ginger and turmeric. Yes, they're a root, they're edible, they're medicinal, they're very tasty when they're fresh. Turmeric in particular, fresh turmeric, oh my goodness, delicious. So what I did here is I started them in a very shallow dish of potting soil. And the roots I got were from the grocery store. I aimed for ones that I noticed had nodules or notches on them. That is a sign of plant growth, not root growth. That is actually where the foliage comes out of. From there, I did put them into containers in the greenhouse. I don't think that step is necessary. I didn't notice any explosive growth during that time, so I wouldn't say like, you gotta have them in a greenhouse. But what I will say was the lighting seemed to have a big effect on them. So turmeric and ginger, I found out, are tropical, but they don't like intense sun. So I made the mistake over the summer months of putting them in really intense sunlight, which very greatly depleted their growing ability. I now have them indoors in a self-watering container. The indoor container I have them in is a cross of houseplants and turmeric and ginger plants, and I've noticed really good growth. Now, the grow lights for this are quite a bit higher above the canopy. These grow lights are intense. Like I said, they're quite a bit higher from the canopy. I'm getting much prettier foliage, much healthier foliage. So, and I knew this through the summer. When I was looking at them, I was like, you were hating where I have you. Am I motivated to move you? No, but they still growed. Now they really want to grow and take off because they've been just laying dormant or kind of in this like pseudo growth stage for most of the summer months. So definitely something to consider there. The turmeric I had a hard time finding fresh in Canada. Loblaws, I'm not going to give you the finger, but I want to give you the finger because most of your turmeric is moldy. Just so you know, most of it's moldy. So while I bought a ton dollar-wise of turmeric, I only got a handful of plants to actually sprout. Something to keep in mind there. I wouldn't give up on the turmeric if you're trying it. It's just going to take some time before you get stuff that's fresh enough to actually grow. The last one is for people who are motivated and or have a device in place that's actually going to help them grow in the right conditions. And that is oranges, limes, lemons, mandarins, tangerines, grapefruits, any sort of citrus fruit. The reason for this is because they are growable. You can get them to flower, you can get harvests off of them. I've seen people do this. However, the only way to achieve this is in the perfect conditions. And that is because the leaves tend to drop. They have a higher disposition for things like powdery mildew, and they do need the correct lighting hours and intensity of light, ultimately speaking. So again, selfless plug here because I helped design it, is the Earth One plant sensor. The Earth One plant sensor would give you the proper parameters and track your parameters accordingly to help you achieve that harvest, if that makes sense. So the reason why these don't do well, and if you've struggled with these in the past, is it comes down to soil moisture. They don't like to dry out. They won't wilt or show signs of drying out. What they will do though, is they will drop all their leaves. They also tend to have root rot. So if they're overwatered, their roots tend to rot, their stems tend to rot very easily. So soil moisture seems to be the key there. They don't do well in a chunky mix. So a chunky mix is not the solution to keeping these citrus fruits alive. It would be a sunshine mix number 5, watered properly, and that's where a sensor would come into play. The other thing is lighting. So they benefit from 10 plus hours of light. Ideal world would be 18 hours for a specific period of time, and then decreasing it as time goes on. Again, a sensor is going to help you to do this. An app that tells you how to adjust your lighting and when to adjust it also is going to help with this. But ultimately speaking, that is a rule of thumb. The other thing, and probably the most important, but the hardest, the absolute hardest, you can't do this without a sensor, you can't do this without an app unless you really enjoy doing a lot of math in your spare time. There's no way. And that is vapor pressure deficit, VPD. So what this means is it's a balance of temperature and ambient air moisture. What that is it is the humidity of the room, but more specifically, if the humidity is over or undersaturated and what parameter you need to change to achieve the proper rate. Earth One team talks about this. We usually reference it as the Goldilocks zone. We don't, like in our app, we don't say Goldilocks zone, but when we're talking about developing usable data for you guys, or like a usable app that translates into usable data for you guys, we're talking about the Goldilocks zone. And what you're aiming for with these citrus plants is the Goldilocks zone. So VPD is what you'd look at here, and you, depending on what's being tracked and kind of what is movable, if you will, you would use this to determine if moisture needs to go up, down, temperature needs to go up, down, etc. and so forth. If you're in the Goldilocks zone though, you have the proper utilization of nutrients and water and you name it. So the plant tends to cycle out really, really nicely. You don't end up with that leaf drop. You don't end up with powdery mildew. You don't end up with pests. And more importantly, you don't end up with flower or fruit dropping, which is the other thing that tends to happen with these guys. The fruits and the flowers tend to just pop off if the humidity, more specifically the VPD, is not in order and the soil moisture is not in order. So that is one plant where you can get a yield, but you need a plant sensor. I love plants. They're my world. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel about it. My daytime job is mostly about it. My hobby, when I come home, it's like, oh, what do I got to do with my plants? It's literally my life. And I don't have the patience for these guys until, well, I have the plant sensor now. The plant sensor is officially out. So I could use this to make the citrus work. Citrus, usually you can buy these in February. So I might grab a citrus plant this year because now I have a plant sensor that will babysit it for me, because let's face it, citrus plants need a babysitter. Anyways, I hope this helped you guys out and motivates you to go get some tropical plants for your indoor garden this year. Whether you're a houseplant person or a gardener, these plants are like tropical plants that kind of like meet in the middle of like the houseplant garden world. Everyone wants a piece of these. So go check these out, go grab some. Most of these are free. You just have to grab the fruit and then bring it home and then do the mad scientist with it, and you should be good to go. I thank you for watching. Give the video a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. Share the video, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.